All right. Hey, everybody. This is Lance Pugmire. Welcome back to the second episode of what I call Pug's Corner. And we are joined today by international agent, broker, and a consultant with four decades of worldwide boxing experience, the great and legendary Rick Glaser. Love him, hate him. He's here to join us to talk about a big fight that just was formally announced yesterday. It's coming our way April 9th in Japan, which means it'll show in the U.S. on April 8th. And that is the middleweight title defense by Triple G Gennadiy Golovkin going to Japan to fight Ryoto Murata. Now, Rick, I mean, we were talking about it briefly, and my first thought was, these are words that no boxing fan wants to hear. Here we are on the brink of a possible trilogy match between Gennadiy Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez, as long as both of these guys win their springtime fights. And you have some information that makes you believe that Gennadiy Golovkin is going to lose to Murata in Japan. Tell us more.
Well, the man's turning 40 years old on April 8th when they fight.
Yeah.
And he's had a lot of amateur fights. He's had 42 professional fights. He's 40 years old, and that's a lot of wear and tear on the legs, on the body, the mind. And I just don't see him being what he was. And at one time, we always think of GGG as in these great fights and how great of a fighter he is. But I think that's a case of that was then, this is now. And everybody's by having 7-1 odds out there from the bookmakers. I was reading 7-1. If you bet on GGG, that you put up 700 to win 100. Those are like super long odds, and I just don't see it. I see it's a very competitive fight, and I believe Murata has a great chance to win the fight. Fantastic chance to win the fight. He was a gold medalist in the Olympics in 2012 in London. He won his rematches. His 2 losses as a professional, he won his rematches. He's tall. He's like 6'1", and he's an excellent puncher. And he's going to be in great shape. He's got the home field advantage. GGG's training in the United States. That's a long way to go to Japan. And I just think all the intangibles, not only the age, not only the wear and tear, but all the other intangibles favor Murata. And to put out a 7-1 line, I think that's crazy. I think this is a very good fight. And if Murata gets his hand raised at the end of a grueling fight, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay?
Wow.
And I don't mean because of a robbery. I mean legitimately. I mean, I've seen many fights over the years in Japan, and I've never seen a robbery.
Okay.
Always fair decisions. One matter of fact, if I remember correctly, back in the 90s, Stevie Johnson went over there and won his world title over there. So the great American lightweight, WBC World Lightweight Championship. So it can very well happen. It's a unification bout. They're both champions, and they're both champions for a reason. But also another factor that I'm considering is, even though they've both been inactive the last few years because of the COVID, because we haven't been able to put on the biggest fights to pay these guys what they command. But the other issue right now is that GGG's hasn't been living that Kyrgyzstan lifestyle. He's been living that LA lifestyle. And
I agree with you. Now, look, I'm not saying that Triple G is going to lose, but I agree with you on that point. I think that that's huge. I think that, elaborate on what your concern is with him living in Santa Monica and, relishing his life.
Those kind of things make a man soft, getting out of, like Marvin Hagler said, going, laying on silk bed sheets and wearing silk robes doesn't help your state of mind when it comes to boxing. Boxing's the smell of the gym and getting out there at 4 o'clock in the morning and running your 5 miles And a guy like GGG at 40 years old with maybe 30, 40 million dollars in the bank, maybe 50 million, maybe 60 million, who knows?
Yeah.
He's going to say, well, I don't have to run today, or, I'm going to miss camp today, or whatever. I'm going to eat this, these 3 burritos, and all that, everything I'm saying adds up. And these things add up to a possible upset, because these are the things that cause upsets. A tall guy with a good jab who comes back with a good straight right hand, a guy with good footwork. And, Murata's got good footwork. He was a great amateur. And all these little intangibles add up. And I think this is a fight that Murata is being very overlooked. Everybody's already scheduling GGG versus Canelo for September. Here's my thought of that. My thought is Canelo's got a much greater shot of beating Bivol than GGG does of beating Murata.
Look, the thing that you were saying about the lifestyle is one thing, and the work ethic of Gennadiy Golovkin, I've seen it up close many times up in Big Bear, and it is unquestioned. But it is unquestioned up there with his former trainer, Abel Sanchez, who, in my opinion, that's the biggest mistake that Gennadiy Golovkin has made, is separating himself from Abel Sanchez, who, and I'm not questioning Gennadiy Golovkin's work ethic. What I am questioning is his separation from the knowledge that Abel Sanchez had, not only about who Gennadiy Golovkin was, but about the opponents that he was going to be preparing for. And that's a huge void. I was going over it, Rick. Gennadiy Golovkin's 3 fights without Abel Sanchez, a landslide matchup against Steve Rolls, KO 4. Then
if Steve Rolls owed me money, I'd be even money.
Then he goes up against Sergey Debrachenko, and you saw that fight. I know us at ringside, it could have gone either way. It could have been a draw, Gennadiy did not look good.
That's the first fight that the wear and tear showed up.
Yes, good point. I agree. He did start, and again, he may have come back against Zarameta with a TKO 7, but that was December 2020.
But also, Zarameta is a C+ fighter. He's not a world-class fighter. Anybody could look good against him. He couldn't be a good six-round fighter, and he's put into a world title fight to make GGG look good, to set him up for another fight. But then that fight didn't come till now because of the COVID and all kinds of legal delays and all kinds of lawsuits and potential lawsuits and happy horseshit that is boxing at times.
Yeah, but the focus was lost. The focus went away from boxing for Triple G. It was so clearly, Rick, look, he got his eye off the prize. He took his eyes off of what he wanted, which was a convincing victory over Canelo Alvarez, to really be able to say that I am the man. And once that second fight took place and all this money started coming his way, I believe that he got distracted by it. He separated from Abel. He even changed, I would say, I was talking about this with a reporter friend of mine the other day. I've had great conversations with Gennadiy in English. He can speak English. And he sort of employed this translator to help him, after that. And it was almost to where he was saying, I don't want to talk to you guys anymore. You deserve a little attention, only because we have to sell the fight, but not really that much. And I just thought that it came across as him, for those who knew Gennadiy best, like Abel Sanchez, who were saying the things about how he had changed, it checked those boxes. And it's unfortunate because
I think another point that you didn't bring up that I was about to bring up was that when he got rid of Abel Sanchez, he got rid of him for the wrong reason, because he wanted to pay him less. That's not a good sign. Mm-hmm. That means you're not a fighter anymore. You're a businessman.
Right.
That's not a good sign in the ring.
Yes. Now, look, when we were talking about this the other day, I said, how can you say this? Murata is a guy who lost to Rob Brandt. And you immediately said, yeah, he came right back and beat Rob Brandt, which he did in an impressive second round TKO. What are you hearing? I mean, I know you're plugged in, and I know you have some information that you haven't divulged at this point. But tell me what you're hearing out there about how good he's looking.
Well, Murata supposedly looks good in the gym, sparring with fighters, with various fighters. And one thing about any fighter that's promoted by Tekin, which is the promotional company that Mr. Honda owns, is called Tekin Promotions,
Yeah.
is they come in tremendous shape. They won't hesitate to bring in 4, 5, 6 sparring partners. Not at all. Put them up in first class hotels, pay them well, and he will be in tremendous shape. I mean, he'll be eating the right foods. He'll be doing all the strength and conditioning, and he will be in great shape. They won't leave anything to second guess anything on. They go first class all the way. And I also think there's a big age spread there. One just turned 36 in January. One's turning the
40.
GGG is turning 40, and that is a big spread, especially one guy's only had 18 fights and one guy's had 42 is the other thing. The other guys had GGGs had way more amateur fights. I mean, hundreds, where the other guys didn't have that many, even though he ended up winning the gold medal in the Olympics. And I just think the wear and tear difference, I think that Murata is being greatly underestimated because, quote, he's Japanese. And most times, bigger Japanese fighters aren't that good. The little guys are good normally, normally up to fighters like up to 26 to 30 pounds. And the real little guy, they're normally really good. But occasionally they come up with a bigger fighter, and this is that bigger fighter that's very good. And there's going to be, I know when he just fights regular fights, there's 35,000 people there. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, Gennadiy really walking into like a hornet's nest, that is going to be a pro-Murata crowd. That is a issue to keep an eye on for this fight. I wanted to ask you this because, to me, again, push comes to shove, gun to the head, who are you picking? I say Gennadiy Golovkin so desperately and badly wants this trilogy fight against Canelo Alvarez that he will come prepared and he will be able to do enough to defeat Murata. Don't you think that is incentive enough for Gennadiy to claim victory in this fight?
Oh, that's the one saving grace that GGG and anybody backing GGG at the betting window has in this fight right there. That is the saving grace, a mega payday on the way out the door. Because remember something, the 2 times that he fought Canelo was only 160 pounds, and he was basically a young man and not mature enough and physically not as good as he is now. Now he's a complete fighter. He's at his peak. Okay, what looks to be his peak between now and over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And GGG's on the back 9. There's nobody can convince me he's not on the back 9 heading towards the clubhouse. And I just think he wipes the floor with him this time. I mean, just wipes the floor with him. But I think that GGG will give 1,000% of himself. Don't get me wrong. If he gets there, if he beats Murata, but I just think it's a 2 ships crossing in the night going in opposite directions.
Yes. Yeah.
One's going up and one's going down.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. But it would not surprise me if we see Murata fighting Canelo in December or September or December, or whatever.
September is when Canelo says he wants to fight again in September. He has a deal signed for it to be Gennadiy as long as they both win. And then Canelo has Eddie Hearn revealed this yesterday that there's a plan in place for Canelo to fight a 3rd time in 2022 later in the year.
Fight John Ryder over in the UK.
Yeah, but Canelo's pushing for a homecoming fight in Guadalajara, so it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But, I mean, so many things to happen. We haven't even got to Canelo Bivol, and maybe we can get to that next. But thank you so much for your – yeah, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead. Give us a quick one.
Canelo and Bivol, I mean, the only thing going in that fight is does it go to the limit, the full 12 rounds, or does Canelo stop him? There's no question who's going to win.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that? No question. Because to look at the size and to consider Bivol's skill, don't you have to say, like, you know, he does pose some significant threat to Canelo?
Canelo is a much better thinker in there, number one. Okay, he's much faster. The other guy's got a good jab. Canelo sees all that stuff coming, and the other guy's not a puncher anymore. Who's the last guy he knocked out? Maybe Sullivan Barrera a while ago.
That's it. 6 fights with six straight fights, unanimous decision.
So Canelo's not going to be afraid of his punching power. I don't mean he's scared, but he's not. He's just going to walk in and unload on the guy with those wicked body shots and freeze the guy. And the only saving grace that what's his name has is Bivol, is that supposedly he's got a good chin and he's got good footwork, and he's going to need it because believe me, Canelo comes in with a full head of steam like he's done with all these super middleweights, all these guys. It's going to be it's going to be real torture. And another thing is, Bivol's been very, very, very inactive. Canelo's been fighting a lot, and I just don't see any way Bivol wins that fight. No way, no shape. Zero chance to me. I mean, yeah, do they both have 8, 10-ounce boxing gloves on? Is it a fair fight? They both have the same size boxing gloves on, but it just doesn't figure. In other words, that's why we fight the fights, but it doesn't. The punching power is not there. He does nothing particularly great to beat a Canelo, and you'd have to do multiple things great to beat Canelo. To me right now, nobody beats Canelo. The guy who gives him the best fight is David Benavidez. Gives him the best fight. He doesn't beat him. Okay. I mean, just don't see Charlo. He'll run with Charlo right out of the ring. I mean, really, Charlo be screaming for his mama. He gets hit with 2 of those body shots. Just the way it is.
Well, listen,
fighter. He's a unique fighter.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He has a special talent. Well, what we know is that if Ryoto Murata defeats Triple G on April 9th in Japan, you heard it here first from the great Rick Glaser. Rick, tell everyone your Twitter address so they can follow you.
It's Real Rick. It's Real Rick Glaser 1, and I've got like about 4,200 followers. There's a couple fake Rick Glaser accounts out there, but it's at Real Rick Glaser 1. Glaser is Glaser. And I answer all questions. You hit me up on Twitter. I answer all questions. So if you have anybody has any questions, you can always ask.
Great. Thank you so much, Rick. We'll send about 1 million your way. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.